What a very warm welcome, guys. Hello, it's Cassim, and welcome to another episode of Notes on the topic of. And in today's episode, I wanted to talk to you on the subject of remove antidepressants off the table. Want to firstly start off by thanking you very much for joining me. I want to thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me, and I hope that something that I share with you today can help you to become a higher, fuller expression of who you're capable of becoming. So, I've made several notes on on this topic, and I wanted to share as many of them as I can with you in the hopes that in some way they can help you elevate your life. In particular, in this particular case, your mental health, and maybe they can help get you on the stepping stone to becoming a higher, fuller expression of yourself. So I was already, yesterday, I was already making some notes on mental health because I'd realized I was listening to the news and was reading some articles, and many of the articles were talking about mental health and how mental health problems have increased. And I just so happened to be talking to a friend of mine, Jack, and Jack was asking me about mental health, and he said that I should do a video on it. So I thought, well, let's combine two in one. And so part of the reason why you're listening to me today is because of Jack and the conversation that I had with him about mental health. And so as I said, I've made several notes on mental health, and I wanted to share as many of them with you as possible. But really the angle that I wanted to come to you with on this subject is I wanted to share with you what I would call the foundation for protecting your mental health during COVID-19. And what I'm going to try to share with you today is essentially what I have done over the last 6 years. What have I done to allow me to today be able to have really good mental health? So I would probably say that if we had a scale of 0 to 10, and 10 was 0 was I'm suicidal, I want to kill myself, and 10 was like joy, it was like spectacular, I had a great life, I had great mental health. Generally speaking, I would say that my mental health on a regular basis of a week is about an 8 on that scale of 0 to 10. So but this isn't clearly an accident, right? As you obviously found out as I go more into this today. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to share with you the foundation for how I've been able to manage to keep my mental health at about a kind of a 7 and an 8 out of 10 on a scale of 0 to 10 of sort of happiness and joy and emotional state. So let me begin with the first note, which is what you've seen, which is the title of this episode, which is that you've got to remove antidepressants off the table. So 6 years ago, wrote down in my journal, most of you know I have multiple journals, but I wrote down in my journal all the areas that I consider to be really important to me. Okay, so these were areas such as relationships, friendships, health, work, right, as in my job. I considered money to be a pretty important thing to me. I considered contribution, meaning that I wanted to help people. So I wrote down this whole list of areas of my life that I felt were really important. And one of those areas was my mental health. And I decided clearly this area of mental health, my emotional state, how angry I am, how happy I am, is clearly something which is important to me. And the reason why I decided that was because I started studying people who were successful and had everything that they wanted in life, but they were depressed, but they were suicidal, but they were angry, but they stepped on everybody to get there. Which, if you know me personally and you've listened to many of my videos, you will know that the two subjects that I study are, number one, how do you get what you want starting from nothing? If you're just a normal person, how do you actually build the kind of life that you want? And my second question is, how do you do that without ending up divorced, without ending up killing yourself, without ending up stepping on everybody to get there? Because that's essentially what I was afraid of. I was afraid of becoming successful but becoming a dick, stepping on everybody to get there. Afraid that I was going to get there and end up being some corrupt, horrible person, human being. So I was like, how do I live and create this remarkable life, starting off with nothing but still be a good person? And in that quest, one of the things that I decided was that I was not going to be interested in anything which I couldn't control. Meaning, I removed pills and antidepressants off the table when it came to my mental health. I said, under no circumstances am I ever to take antidepressants. Number one, I don't like medicine. Number two, I know that companies that create antidepressants, all of them kind of have their own agendas. They all have their own intentions. I know for a fact that a company is built to make money, okay? And let's be frankly honest with you. Let's be frankly honest. If a company's built to make money and the product that they're producing is medicine, why would they want to stop selling me medicine? And I'm only telling this to you from my point of view. You may have completely different opinions than I do, but I'm only sharing with you what I feel. So I was like, okay, clearly a company which is built to make money, which is built, it's a foundation, right? We all know if a company doesn't make money, it will go bankrupt, which means it can't continue running, right? So I was like, clearly, if these companies are creating antidepressants, they're not really looking out for my best interest. They're looking out for their best interest. Second thing that happened was that I realized that, let's be frankly honest, most people are biased. Most people have their own agendas. So if I go and see my local GP will have her own opinions about what the best route is for me to consider. My GP is not going to tell me about meditation. She's not going to tell me about setting goals. She's not going to tell me about all the various things that I'm going to talk to you about today. I've basically very quickly realized that. So I was like, well, clearly, this antidepressant aspect has to be removed off the table. And when I said that, obviously that then left me in a really awkward position, because that meant that I had to go and figure out ways where if I was ever depressed, or I could never be, I would have to find a different alternative to taking antidepressants. Or I had to ensure that I never get to the point where I'm so depressed that I have to take antidepressants. So the first thing that I would share with you as a foundation for your mental health is that you've got to remove antidepressants off the table. You've got to remove the fact that but if things get really bad, I could take antidepressants. That has to be removed out of your mind. It can't even exist as far as you're concerned. That is the first thing that I would share with you. Second thing that I would share with you, and it's going to sound a bit weird and a bit bizarre, but stay with me, is that you have to become wise. Or let me put it like this. You've got to pursue wisdom. The reason why I say that you want to pursue wisdom is that when you start going down the path of wisdom, of what is this whole wisdom thing about, what makes a person wise, one of the things that you will discover along that route and along that path is that part of wisdom is discerning what you're good at and what you're not good at, what you know and what you don't know. And the second aspect of wisdom, which you will discover as you go along that path of studying wisdom and trying to figure out how to become wiser, is that you will discover that there is a lot of things about you which need refinement. There's a lot of things about you which need improvement. And I say that to you because that's really, really, really important. Number one, if you don't know that you're vulnerable to mental health, then you will never ever set up the defenses that you need to in order for you never to be put in a position where you're gone so far that you're feeling suicidal, right? If you don't, because a lot of people, we're naive and we're like, well, that's never going to happen to me. See, when you start pursuing wisdom, one of the things that you will realize is that that can happen to you, and it does happen to a lot of people. But on the other hand, what it does also is that it requires that you go and seek knowledge, right? It requires that you go and figure out, well, where are you wrong? What don't you know? And the reason why I say that is because many of it, and I'm going to get to this in a moment, but many of you guys, you don't know anything about this area. A lot of people have no idea about mental health. They don't know what causes it. They don't know how to fix it. They don't know what different routes there are to overcome it. Most people have no idea. All they know is there is this thing called mental health. It's not really good. It affects some people, and you can kind of do some meditation stuff, and you can kind of do some take some antidepressants, but that's all most people really know, right? And I think that a lot of wisdom is about discerning when should you go and look at your mental health. When is a good time to you've heard of this phrase that life is a balancing act. So you've got to know. So at sometimes you will focus on your business, and you will focus on your work, and you will focus on your family. At other times you will focus on your health. At other times you will focus on saving. And your job, and if you pursue wisdom, one of the things that you will learn is that your job is to discern, okay, I've spent way too much time at work. I've now got to spend some more time with my family. Oh, I've spent way too much time with my family, and I've not spent hardly any time on my health. And when you get this, you will understand, and you will get a really kind of wholesome view about your life and about when to make good decisions. And a lot of people don't know when to make good decisions, and that is part and that is part of the reason why a lot of people end up having and suffering from mental health. I'm sure you've seen a lot of people who have mental health. It's like one day they're good, the next thing you know, they just all of a sudden have committed suicide, and you're like, but I saw him yesterday and he was really happy, and he was telling me how much he loves me, and he was telling me how much we're good friends and all the memories, and today he's committed suicide. How is that possible? Part of the reason is because the person didn't pursue wisdom to understand, oh, okay, so I have vulnerabilities, which means let me seek help. That actually, me seeking help isn't a sign of weakness. Seeking help is a sign of strength, because I recognize that there are some areas that I'm really strong in, but I also recognize that there are some areas where some people are really strong in as well. So I can learn off them, I can lean on them, and they can lift me up, and they can share their perspectives and their insights and their knowledge, and they can help me develop my skills. And without wisdom, it's really difficult to pursue that. All right? So that's the second thing, is wisdom. The next thing that I would share with you is that I would share with you that anything which is important and worthwhile is hard and usually takes a lot of time. The reason why I'm saying this to you is that in a moment, I'm going to start giving you a list of things that you can do to essentially manage your mental health. But I tell you this because if you don't understand that anything which is important and is worthwhile takes time, what you're going to do is that you're going to fall into the trap, which so many people do in life, and especially today, which is that you're going to want to microwave your mental health. A lot of people today, they want to microwave, they want everything today, they want everything instantly. Most of us don't understand that anything which is really worthwhile and anything which is really got any value to it, right? It takes time and it's hard. And I can tell you right now from experience that really getting a handle of your mental health is a nightmare. It's really, really, really difficult. For example, in a moment I'm going to tell you that one of the things that you have to do is you have to journal. Like, you will have to sit there and write about your emotions and write about the interaction that you're having with people. And you're going to write about your day and what lessons you've learned and what things you're not good at and what failures you've had. And the thing is, you won't be able to do all of that if you're expecting to get results today. Right? And you're expecting to kind of you're going to have that thing that a lot of people have, which I call intensity versus consistency, which is where people go to the gym. They go to the gym 5 times, 6 times, 7 times a week, and they go there for like 6-7 hours, and they do it for 3 weeks, and they're like, oh, but I'm not even that big. It doesn't work like that. How you actually get big in the gym and how you become healthy and how you become stronger is maybe going 2 or 3 times a week for an hour or 2 hours, but do that over 6 months. And so one of the things that I would share with you as the first thing is, if you really want to set up a really good foundation for your mental health, you've got to stop thinking about it in terms of like a microwave, in terms of like a takeaway. You've got to think about it as it is an integration into your life. It's a lifestyle. It's a wholesome. That's part of the reason why I said to you earlier on that why wisdom is so important. Because if you pursue wisdom and you go down and start studying wisdom, you will understand that clearly your mental health will affect all the other dimensions of your life. Your mental health is going to affect your relationship. It's going to affect your work. Do you see what I mean? And so you can't look at your mental health as a kind of like a one-time fix sort of thing. You've got to look at it as a wholesome kind of, metaphorically speaking, as a wholesome, from a wholesome viewpoint. The next thing that I want to share with you is that you have to become serious. So many of you will know my brother Bashir plays for England. His club team is Chelsea, and he also plays for England. And I was speaking to Bashir, and I said to Bashir, tell me something. What makes the difference between normal people who go and play football out in their football courts, out in their fields, people who play football in like League One? What's the difference between them and people who play in the Premier League, who play in the Champions League, people who end up playing in the World Cup? What's the difference? And Bashir said to me, one of the big differences is the level of seriousness. He said, when you're playing in your local field, it isn't really serious. It's kind of just like you're having fun. But when you get up to professional level, when you get up to like kind of like Premier League, Champions League, it's not a joke, right? There is a level of seriousness, there's a level of intensity which is involved in order to actually be able to perform at those high levels. And I would say to you that if you really want to get your mental health in control and you really want to be operating from like a 7 and an 8 out of 10 on in terms of your emotional state, you've got to get serious about your emotional energy. We live in a world today where most people are too chilled. Most people are like, oh, come on, Cass, it's only mental health, it's not a big deal. Well, I'm not like suicidal, like I'm not like really bad. A lot of people are very nonchalant about mental health. They're very chilled. The thing is, I said to you earlier on that anything which is worthwhile and is valuable, you can't really be all chilled about it. It's hard work and it takes a long time. And so if you're going to stick with something that's going to be hard work and is going to take a long time, you've got to be serious about it. You've got to like genuinely be serious and say, okay, I've got to sort this out. I've got to handle this. I've got to do certain things. And what I would share with you is that if you genuinely want to handle your mental health, you've got to get really serious. And you've got to get serious about the fact that we live in a world now, okay, where clearly this mental health thing is not going away. Okay, this isn't like kind of like a phenomenon or an anomaly where something happens once and then it kind of disappears. This is here to stay, right? Mental health is going to be more and more of a player in our lives than looking back at the previous generations. It was always active in all the previous generations, but we're living in a world today where there is so much uncertainty, there is so much confusion. The rules are changing, everything is changing. So there is no certainty anymore, which causes for just psychologically for us to go nuts. Our psychology just goes insane. So what I would share with you is to understand that you've got to be serious about mental health. You can't just be joking and be chilled about it. So that's the next thing. I shared with you earlier on what I call the 7, 8, 9 with you, and what I mean by that is basically I've discovered that in life we never get what we want, we get below what we want. So in other words, if you're a guy and you're aiming for a girl who's a 10, usually you will not get a girl who's a 10, you will probably get a girl who's like a 7 or an 8 or a 9 out of 10. If you're a guy who wants to become Mr. Olympia, you rarely will you become Mr. Olympia, but you may become your country's biggest bodybuilder. Now, obviously, like with everything, there's always an exception to every rule. Somebody has to eventually become Mr. Olympia, right? What am I saying? I'm saying that if one of your goals is to earn £50,000, very rarely will you get £50,000. Usually you will get like 44, 45, 46,000 pounds a year. Do you understand? And so what I mean by this is if you want to handle your mental health and you want your mental health to be good, one of the things that you're going to have to develop is that you're going to have to go above the average, right? Average is on a scale from 0 to 10, average is about a 5. So that means if you aim for 5, we know that you're not going to get 5. We know you're going to get about a 3 or 4. So that means if you really want to get control of your mental health, you need to be aiming at like 10. You need to be aiming at like 9, because you're not going to get mental health at 10 or 9. Right? Something is bound to go wrong. Something is bound to upset you. No matter how positive you think you are, something will always go wrong. And so what I would share with you is, when you are looking at your mental health, ask yourself, where are you heading? Let me give you a perfect example of what I mean by this. So when you start to look at the emotional state, meaning the emotions that you feel every day, what are the emotions? You will find that there is something like 2,000 different emotions that human beings can experience, but on average, most people feel maybe 3 or 4, right, in their day. Angry, pissed off, annoyed, happy, right? You want to change the amount of words that you... let me give you what I mean. So I decided that every single day, throughout my day, I am allowed to spend 10% of my day in a negative state. So what that means, that I can be pissed off, I can be annoyed, I can be revengeful, I can be hateful. I can spend 10% of my day in that state. The 90%, I've got to be grateful. I've got to ensure that life is magical, life is spectacular, that I've got joy, right? I've got excitement. That's where I operate my life from. And my question to you is, what is your standard? What are you aiming for in terms of your emotional state? Because you've got to remember, if I blindfold you and ask you to hit a target, the first thing you're going to say to me is, where is the target? Right? You cannot hit something which you do not know where it is. And worse is, you can't even hit something if you don't even know that it exists. So what we want to do is that you want to determine for yourself your mental health, where you want it to be, where you're aiming it for, and it has to be something way beyond your expectations, because the reality is you're not going to get what you expect. You're going to get a little bit below it. That takes me to the next thing. This is life. Okay, so I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday, and I was like, oh, how are you dealing with the COVID at the moment, and your mental health, and how is everything? And Natasha said to me yesterday, she said, well, Cassim, it's really shit at the moment, and I can't wait until things get better, and I can't wait until things improve. And I said to her, it's interesting that you say that, Natasha, but isn't this life? And what I was trying to explain to Natasha is, so many of us live our lives by saying, when this happens, when that happens, when this is arranged, when this fits. And basically what we're trying to do is, we're thinking that life begins when everything is lined up. But actually, this is life. I mean, you talk about... It's like, what I was saying to her is that you're essentially trying to say that if you died tomorrow, that you would not count this COVID in part of your life. It's as if you're trying to erase part of this period of your life, but it is life. And what I would share with you guys is, feeling negative emotions, feeling vengeful, feeling sad, feeling negative, when things go wrong, that is life. Right? It isn't about you trying to eradicate it, because there is a reason why we have negative emotions. There's a reason why we have anger, bitterness. All of those emotions do serve a purpose. And so one of the things that I would share with you is to realize that don't be so quick to dismiss all the negative emotions, feeling depressed. Because one of the things that I actually said to Natasha is that I said to her, this whole conversation started off with her telling me about how she had a headache. And I was saying to her, oh, this is brilliant. The fact that you have a headache is really good, because when you have a headache, that is your body's way of communicating to you that something isn't right. Something is wrong. Either you're doing something that is taking your body out of balance, or you're not doing something which is taking your body out of balance. And I said, you either are not drinking enough water, you're not eating the right food, you're not exercising. Your body essentially is trying to tell you something about what you're doing or you're not doing is causing problems inside that you cannot see, and we're trying to warn you, we're trying to alert you by giving you pain. And what I would share with you is, if you're going through this period of your life at the moment and you are feeling bored and you are feeling suicidal and you are feeling depressed, this is a sign, right? This is your body saying to you, okay, you've now got to sort this out, right? You've now got to go. Remember I talked about that wisdom aspect? Wisdom mandates that you observe your life, know when to handle it. If clearly you've had like 2 or 3 days where you're feeling a bit low, that's fine. But if you're having months and months of feeling low, feeling depressed, that's your body telling you something that you're doing or not doing is throwing your life out of balance. Something isn't right, which means you've got to do something about it. And a lot of you guys aren't doing anything about it. You're feeling low, you're feeling down, you're feeling bored, you're feeling suicidal, and you're doing nothing. You're not reading anything about it. You're not going to any doctors. You're not seeking help. You're not looking at yourself. You're not reflecting. You're not doing anything. It's insane, right? So what I would share with you is really, really, really look at accepting that this is life. Really look at accepting that this is life and this is the way things are, and that actually the negative is part of life. Okay, so I'm now ready to get into the ideas. So what I'm going to now do is I'm actually going to just throw these ideas out at you, at things that you can do to improve your mental health. Things that you can do, literally, actual things that you yourself can do to take care of your mental health. I'm going to start off by saying this to you. All of the things that I'm going to share with you are simple. All of the things that I'm going to share with you are common sense. And all the things that I'm going to share with you, you are probably not going to like doing them. But if you will do them, if you will activate them in your life, I am almost confident that if you keep doing them consistently over a long period of time, they will bring you success in your life. Okay, so let's go. The first thing that I would share with you that I've done to manage my mental health, that is within my control, is that every single morning when I wake up, I listen to motivational videos. That means I go online on YouTube, I type in motivational video, motivation, anything like that, and as I'm showering, as I'm getting ready, as I'm ironing, I just listen to that stuff. I just listen to it. And obviously there's going to be various things that you're going to be drawn towards. Some things are going to be about depression. Some things are going to be about setting boundaries. But just every single day, if you speak to anybody who knows me personally, even when I will go on a holiday, when I wake up, the first thing that I do is I listen to motivational videos. And the reason for this is because most of us as adults don't have encouragement in our lives. Most people underestimate encouragement. We know, all of us know what it means when a child is encouraged. Go on, darling, you can do it. We know what it does to a child. We know what it does to our dog when we say, well done, boy, good boy. But most of us, we think that we're exempt. We think as adults, we don't need any encouragement. And I would ask you to really ask yourself how many people on a regular basis encourage you. They say to you, you can do it. You're capable of doing it. If you don't have anyone like that in your life, go on YouTube and they'll tell you. Motivational speakers, that's all they ever do. They tell you can do it, don't waste your life, you can do greater things. That's all they spend their life doing. Imagine every single morning that you wake up, Not even 7 days a week, 5 days a week, you listen to 10, 15, 20 minutes of a motivational video every day for 6 years. Imagine if you only even do it for 6 months. Your mental health is going to be through the roof, right? And you will see why I say this is important, because some of the things that I'm going to share with you here are going to be connected. Because you're not going to even feel empowered. You're not going to feel motivated. You're not going to even understand why you should do any of the other stuff if you don't have somebody encouraging you, somebody pushing you, somebody saying to you, it will be all right. So the first thing that I would do if I were you is every single morning that I wake up, I'd listen to a motivational video every day. I'm not talking about for 10 hours. I'm talking about for 10, 15, 20 minutes. Just as you get ready, just listen to it in the background. Number 2 is that I eat food that serves me. Okay, so every single one of us has certain food which brings us nostalgia. Food, when we eat it, it brings us joy. So for example, for me, it's Roosters, it's Nando's, it's, you won't know this food, but I love something called matoke with oxtail and rice. Every time I eat that food, it brings me joy. It brings me fulfillment. I love a roast. So what I do is frequently, every single week, every single month, I ensure, in fact, actually, it's on a Sunday usually. Every Sunday, I always have Roosters peri-peri chicken. Because it's a way for me to really keep maintaining my mental health. Because I know when I eat Roosters, it brings up my emotional state. I feel good. I feel happy. Just from the morning of just even thinking about that I'm going to have it later improves my mood. It improves my emotional state, right? It is something that I can do. Nobody can stop me from having Roosters. It's not like I'm eating it every day and it's going to kill me. But when you do that every single week over 6 months and you combine it with listening to motivational videos, it's going to improve your emotional state. 3 is that I watch inspirational films. Every single week, I watch an inspirational film, right? A film about somebody defeating an enemy, a film about essentially where there's an underdog, right? That can be Aladdin. And when I talk about inspiration, what I mean is you want to watch movies that teach you something about yourself, right? So you can watch a movie, like, look, horror is really great, sci-fi, fantastic. But you want to go and find films which teach you about courage, which teach you about character, which teaches you about perseverance, relentlessness, following your dreams, following your passions, right? For example, a good example of a movie like that is a movie Rudy, right? Go and watch that film. You can go on, it's like £2 to watch the movie Rudy. But it's a great film because it teaches you about perseverance. It teaches you about how to become overcoming obstacles. It teaches you about the fact that sometimes you don't get the dream, but the journey becomes more important than getting the dream, right? And a lot of us, we don't have movies like this in our lives, which are teaching us, which are guiding us, which are coaching us. And when you have these films, what it does to you is it allows you to tweak and refine your life, refine your thinking, refine your philosophy, right? Refine your habits. And if you do these little small things over a 6-month period, over a 6-year period, incredible difference starts to happen in your life. The next thing that I would share with you is that I read autobiographies. Autobiographies of people who've achieved their dreams. Now, I can tell you right now that not every autobiography is going to be something that is going to be your forte, right? You might not find the autobiographies of people like Arnold Schwarzenegger that exciting. For you, it may be autobiographies of people who are into cars, right? Formula One, Lewis Hamilton, right? For others, your autobiographies may be people who are into football. In that case, literally, do you know what I say? Every single week, you should buy one book, and it can be an autobiography. Well, for me, I read one book every week, but that's a lie. I read a lot more than one book a week, because for me, I read 3 books. I read an autobiography, I read a factual book, So things that talk about facts, statistics, things like that. And then I read a book that is more to do with like strategies. A book on or it's kind of on how to. It's all about strategies and tactics, what to do. Right? Those 3 books every week. I read one. I read one of those. And what I would share with you is if you can find an area of your life, you will know what it is. Trust me. Because certain autobiographies will call to you and some won't. You go into a library, look at loads of autobiographies, and there'll be just certain ones that call to you. Just read them. Because it will give you instructions, it will give you wisdom, it will give you insights that you won't be able to learn by yourself. The next one is to have triggers. Okay, this is something that I coach people on because it's quite a complicated process to explain. But what triggers are is, for example, here's a perfect one. A trigger is like this map. So globe, I should say, not map, globe. So I have this trigger because whenever I look at this, it reminds me that I need to travel. It reminds me how small I am. It reminds me how small and insignificant some of my problems are. It reminds me how all of us are all connected, right? Do you understand what I'm saying by that? Why do I've just bought a kind of like a massive frame, and the massive frame has has dots which equate to weeks, and those weeks equate to the amount of weeks that I have been alive, right? And every single week I'm supposed to color in a dot, and as I go along the way, obviously, and the big frame has dots ranging from 0 months to 100 years, because my goal is to live until I'm 100, right? And so I have that, and I've just bought that because I wanted to trigger me. I wanted to remind me, Cassim, you've got to use your life. You've got to do something with it. You can't just waste. Every time you waste a day, you've just wasted a day, right? You can't get it back. And so what I would share with you is you want to try and find things that trigger you. For example, you might have pictures of flowers, pictures of lions. What else do you may have quotes in your house of certain things that are really important to you, about family, about friendship, about openness. But essentially, you want to try and have things that trigger you all the time, right? To think a certain way, to behave a certain way. A lot of us don't have triggers in our lives. But if you can set up triggers in your life, let me give you a perfect example of this. So here's a trigger that you can have. So a lot of guys, when we go to work, when we get home, we tend to carry the same energy that we've had at work into our home. So here's a trigger that you can have that I coach clients on. After you finish work and you've just arrived home, or in fact, 5 minutes before you arrive home, you park up somewhere, and what you do is you sit in your car, you sit there, you take loads of breaths, and then what you do is you clap your hands, and then what you do is you think about the energy that you want to bring into your family home. Do you want to bring excitement? Do you want to bring gratitude? And you think about, as you clap, you think about all these emotions that you want to bring to your family space, so that you don't bring all the problems that you've had at work and all the emotion and all the turmoil into your home. You bring the emotions into your home that you actually intend to, right? It allows you an opportunity to wait and ask your missus what she's been through, how her day has been, instead of dumping all your problems onto your missus, right? Do you see what I mean by that? And the car and the clapping become triggers for the man or the woman, whichever one it is. The next one that I would share with you is to have personal challenges. So personal challenges are challenges which every single day or every single week you work on to improve who you are as a human being. So for example, you might say, this week I am going to go an entire 7 days without swearing once. This week I'm going to go 7 days without lying. or I'm going to go 3 days without lying. And these are all really about improving your awareness about yourself, improving your character, improving your resilience. It gives you a goal. It gives you an easy objective. These personal challenges should not be like 3 weeks. They should be a week, right? Because I think all of us, we can try something for a week and it doesn't really affect our lives. So, for example, you could say, this week, I am going to eat fruit every single day. It's a personal challenge if you're somebody who doesn't eat fruit. Or you might say, this week, I'm going to eat just all vegan food. I'm going to try loads of different types of vegan food and I'm just going to eat vegan food. It's a challenge, especially if you're a meat eater. Or you could say, this week, I'm going to run 1 mile every single day, irrelevant of the weather. It's an easy goal. It's not going to really disrupt your life and like throw everything out of balance. And the next week, you can just go back to your normal routine. But when you begin to set those up, it just creates this incredible momentum. It builds your self-esteem. It builds your confidence. Your week has excitement. Your week has things that you're going after. It's just a really exciting time. The next thing that I would share with you is to raise your expectations for yourself. So this means that, and I think you guys have heard me talk a little bit about this before. I've said to you that the world expects essentially 2 things from you. The first is to pay your taxes. Everyone, irrelevant of who you are, we all expect everyone to pay their taxes. The second is not to kill anybody or stop anybody else getting what they want. Apart from those 2 things, essentially everything else is kind of go grabs. You can kind of do anything else that you really want to, right? And so what I say to people all the time is, beyond that, no one really expects anything great of you. No one is expecting you to do anything spectacular. And so what I would share with you is that you've got to raise the expectation on your mental health for you. And I say this because if you raise it for you, you also raise your level of significance. You also raise your level of importance because you recognize that if your mental health is shit, then you can't bring positivity out into the world. If your mental health is crap, then you become a burden on the system and a burden on other people. If you get to the point where your mental health is really, really bad, it begins to affect your mum, your dad. People start to worry about you. When you enter the space, when you enter a room, people can sense it. We all know when someone's feeling a bit low or is feeling a bit shit. They don't even have to tell us. We can sense whatever it is that they're feeling. We may not be able to articulate it and know the full details, but we can kind of sense something isn't right. And when you begin to raise the expectations for your mental health and you say, actually, I'm not an accident. I am important. I've got something which is valuable. I've got a gift. Me being on this planet is good for somebody, my family, my kids, my community, the people who I work with. I've got something to contribute. I've got something to share that is going to be useful for other people. When you get that and understand that, it puts you at a really good place to be able to manage your mental health. The other thing that I would share with you is, and is connected partly to what I've just said, is to begin to intentionally want to create and put out positive energy into the universe. A lot of mental health is around, I think, being positive. It's around your attitude towards stuff. And I've just realized and I've just noticed when I study people that people who exude positivity, people who intentionally say, I want the world, I want my impact to be positive. I want to walk into a room and improve the energy and make a contribution to those people and make their day better. Those people typically tend to have better mental health. I think a lot of us think that mental health is something which is just naturally born. I disagree. I think it is something which we can generate. It already resides within us, but it's something that we have to actually light a fire. We have to ignite it. We have to push it out of ourselves, right? And I think if you are somebody who goes about the world and you want positivity and you want to spread positivity instead of negativity, the world actually responds to you differently. People respond to you differently. The interactions change as you begin to interact with people, right? If somebody wants the best for people, when something goes wrong or they do something bad, people are like, yeah, but I know what you really meant. I know you said this, but I already know, I know you, and I know what you meant to say was this. But if you're somebody who's naturally very negative and you say something, people aren't going to say, oh, what you meant to say was this. They're going to say, well, clearly you meant it. Why would you have said it in the first place if you didn't mean it? Do you see what I mean? So the world and the world changes, and the interactions that you have change as you begin to intentionally want to put out positive energy into the world. The next thing that I would share with you is that you want to set goals that help somebody based on what you've been through. So the easiest thing that I say to people is write a book about what you've been through. It sounds very simple and very easy, but a lot of people don't even think that they have lived a life which is worth writing about. But I say to people, if you're feeling really down and you're feeling really low, or there is an area of your life which you're struggling with, write a book about it. Literally, go and get a journal, go on Microsoft Word, go on your notes and start writing about it. If you were giving advice to a bunch of kids or a bunch of people who are going through whatever you're going through, start sharing with them. There is something remarkable that begins to happen when a human being begins to share, begins to want to improve other people's lives based on what they've experienced, based on what the sufferings that they've had, based on what they've learned. It's part of the reason why I encourage people all the time to journal, because journaling allows you to be able to share with other people your insights, your knowledge, your skills, right? And the experience that you had. It allows you, and it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. And so what I would share with you is that you want to try and find goals, whether it be through setting up a workshop, writing a book, writing a blog, doing videos online, but find goals that in some way improve other people. Because what it will do is it will create this, it will begin the receiving process, right? The first part of receiving is giving, believe it or not. The more that you give to other people, the more that you begin to receive in your own life. It begins that cycle of giving, receiving, giving, receiving. It's like, have you ever given someone a present and then the next time you see them, they gave you something and you're like, why did you give me that? And they're like, well, because you bought this for me. Obviously, you didn't expect it, you didn't want it. But when you start giving to other people, naturally, people just want to give to you. And it continues this cycle, this wonderful cycle, where you're constantly giving and you're constantly receiving. You're constantly giving, you're constantly receiving. And the more that you give and the more that you receive, the more that you can expand and scale what you're doing. So I would encourage you to really look at how many people you're helping. If clearly you struggled with pregnancy, do a blog about it. Share your knowledge, share your insights, share what you've been through, your experience of trying to have a baby, of pregnancy. If you are somebody who's really struggled with paying off debt, literally write about it. Now, listen, there's going to be haters. Don't be silly. Don't expect. No one, the rule is all good will be attacked on this planet. Every garden will be invaded. Any good which is ever done by anyone will be attacked. Sorry to tell you about that. But what I would share with you is, if you would use and get over the people who are going to hate you and are not going to like what you do, and you actually use your life and your experiences and what you've been through to start to serve other people, honestly, remarkable things are going to happen in your life. Remarkable things. You're going to go beyond what you've ever dreamt, what you've even ever thought was even possible if you will start to do that. The next thing that I would share with you, which you've heard me talking a lot about, is journaling. Journal. Journal about what you're going through. Journal about what you're experiencing. Journal about the difficulties you're having, the interactions that you're having, the challenges that you're having to overcome. Talk about the good times. Talk about the bad times. Talk about the lessons that you've learned. Talk about the insights that you've had. Talk about your life. Because sometimes, unfortunately, we don't have anyone who we can share what we've been through or our pains. but we can write them down. We can at least get them out of us and we can put it on paper. Even to the point of you can start to do a podcast on it. Or if you don't want to do a podcast, you can start to do a video show. And if you don't want to do a video show, you can just start to do like voice memos. Write voice memos about what you're experiencing, what you're going through. Nobody else has to ever see it. They can be just for you. But if you begin to do that, journaling, I just think makes an incredible difference in a lot of people's lives. And I just don't think people really understand it. The other thing that I would share with you, which will help you with your mental health, is to remove all apps on your phone. Essentially, what I'm trying to get at here is distractions. Okay, most of us, we spend our life in distraction. We try to do. There's a guy I was listening to a long time ago, and he said, "Don't seek for relief, seek fulfillment." I repeat, he said, "Don't seek for relief, seek for fulfillment." Meaning, at the beginning of today, I shared with you that anything which is worthwhile and is of value takes a long time and is usually difficult. So if you are going to have fulfillment and not relief, it's going to take some time. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. And what I would share with you is if you in your life will begin to look at all the different dimensions of your life. If you in your life will begin to examine and study your mental health, and you begin to go through and listen to motivational videos, and you will go and generate positive energy out into the world, and you will go and raise your standard, and you will go and study mental health, and you will go and look at consistency versus intensity. I think that will get you on a really good path to improving your mental health. So that's kind of it, really. That's what I wanted to share with you. I don't know whether it's been useful for you or not, but I hope it's kind of giving you some ideas of things that you can do in your own life that can in some way get you onto that path of improving your mental health. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I shall speak to you soon. Bye for now.